Knock, knock. Who's there? Knock sensor. Today we're going to talk about. The thumbnail that I have up is a knock sensor that I think it's Nick Fowler sent it to me. I'll show you a picture of it in case you can't see the. In case you can't see the thumbnail, the thumbnail. So looks all fancy. So let's see here. You can see that it's adjustable. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to run this on the engine dyno, and that it will. And hopefully we'll be able to get knock detection without, a bunch of false knock, which would be cool. As I've talked about before on a lot of these live feeds, being able to have knock detection would be really cool. It also has a plug for headphones, so we can listen to it, which would be cool. The problems I've had in the past when we've tried to test knock sensors, I've listened to a copper tube that works, but it's really loud. But the thing is that even the human ear, I mean, we can detect the differences in frequency. It's just that you have to mentally filter out all the other nonsense that's going on. The one that I was listening to is when I was doing the one that I use with the tube bolted to the head. I was listening to this when I did my Engine Masters program, when I was in the Engine Masters competition. And because we had to run basically on, most people ran into detonation, not just on the edge of detonation. Most of the engines were knocking during the test because they're running basically right on the ragged edge, because you're trying to get as much power as you can. So you're running high compression. We had to run on pump gas. And so the combination with that, and I now wish I would have done some other things on that motor, softening the chamber and stuff, which would have helped things out a lot, which I didn't do. But you can hear you can hear detonation when it happens. You can also hear lots of other stuff. You can hear the roller rockers, the timing chain, probably piston slap. You can hear there are lots of things that are going on. There are lots of different frequencies that are going on in the motor, and so what I wanted and the problem that we were running into before, when we had people come out that had knock sensor technology on these things, that it was hearing all kinds of stuff, and the knock sensor was going off even when we knew detonation wasn't present, because we had a 9.5 to 1 motor on pump gas and running a perfect trace every time. And we tried retarding the timing a couple of degrees, and then the knock detection was still going off. We're like, look, that's not detonation. Oh no, it is. I'm like, look, it's not detonation. It's hearing something else. And whatever it's hearing, whatever the frequency is tuned to, something else is providing that. And it's giving it a false knock, basically. I said, so one thing we never did, which I wish I would have done, was bring the thing into detonation, make it rattle at least a little bit. And on an NA motor, it's probably not going to hurt itself. But if we could have introduced knock and then saw that, maybe there was a way that we could have tuned for that on the knock sensor to go, hey, don't listen to this other stuff that's going on that seems like it's knock. Listen to this where it actually is knock. And then if we hear that, then we know that that's a problem. Because, and especially if you have it hooked up to provide what I call countermeasures. So if you hears knock detection, if it detects knock, it will retard timing, or if it's elaborate, you can have it cut boost and things. Add water meth injection, whatever the thing is that's making it work. You can do all of that, which is good. It's good to have these kinds of countermeasures. Oh, I need to, I don't know. We're just going to hold on for right now. Bottom's kind of dropping out, but maybe it'll come back. It's not a tumor. That's right. So I'm excited about it. I would like to try it. So the poll for today will be Nick Fowler is the guy that has this, and he reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to try this? This is something that I'm kind of working on. Would you like to try that? So I test this knock sensor system on the engine dyno. Should I test this knock sensor detection system on the engine dyno? So let's see what people have to say. What I'm hoping is the ideal situation is that this works. It detects knock. It doesn't detect false knock. It detects actual knock, and that it can be used so that, because we had talked about in one of the live feeds previously that I'd like to do more pump gas testing, but this would be perfect for that, because then we could go, hey, look, it's listening for detonation. We're hearing it. We could try another degree of timing or a half degree or whatever it is we want to talk about. We could try that with pump gas and see where that is, because obviously people and this to me is kind of funny, because I don't put these two things together the way that I do things. I err on the safety side, especially when it comes to tuning. But what people want is, I want the most amount of power, but it's got to be safe. It's got to be on pump gas, because I can't afford anything else. So you want all of those things, and presumably 50 miles per gallon and all of those things as well. So I want to make as much power as I can, but it's got to be on pump gas. And then you'll get people that want that. But I want it on 87. Okay, I understand that. I understand the desire, but the reality usually is different than that. Not that you can't run that, you can. It just takes a lot of time and a real knock sensor detection to figure that out. And then obviously knock sensor countermeasures as well, because we see that on especially the high compression stuff, the LT stuff, and especially the Coyote stuff. The Coyote basically drives around on the knock sensor all the time. They're relying very heavily on that particular application, where it seems like they're bouncing the timing back and forth. Knock, okay, knock, 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 knock. But I applaud the technology, and also their aggressive tune like stature. I like the fact that they're trying to get as much as they can, and they're allowing it to do that. And they're going all the way up to, let's get as much power as we can, because we know where this is going to make power. Oh, nope, we can't have that. Okay, we're going to pull a little bit away, but we're going to pull it away, and then we're going to add it back and see if it's still safe. It's like sticking your foot in the water. Nope. The alligator's still there. And I'm going to keep sticking my foot in the water, and maybe until he goes away, and then I can go for a swim. By the way, for people from Australia will tell you that's probably not a good idea. But I like the idea, and I like the idea that it's adjustable. So I can read you some of the things that that were mentioned in this. Let's see here. The headphone output supplies full range of straight from the Bosch knock sensor. I've tested adding filters to the signal, but in my opinion, just makes the sound harder to hear. It has an LED knock output LED signal. Let's see. Standard 52 millimeter gauge, 2 knock sensor inputs, comes with Bosch knock sensors and 8 feet of shielded cable, 6 LEDs that indicate knock level. So it's a little bit knock, and then a rod knock, I guess, is maybe the adjustable scale. Adjustable sensitivity, headphone output, adjustable volume, 0 to 5 volt output for data logging. So we could data log what knock sensing, what it's detecting and when it's happening. So very cool. So thank you, Nick, for sending that out and sending me the photo so that I could use it for the discussion. Obviously, this sort of technology is used at the OEM level and has been for quite a while. I mean, if you look at the 85 and even the 84 stuff, the turbo, when we ushered in the performance turbo era back in the 80s, the Dodge Omni had a knock sensor, and they relied on it to keep things safe. It's very, very important. Also, they combined that with low compression, and they did lots of tuning on the dyno and stuff, and then eventually intercooling and every through all of the stuff at it. Recommended, which the interesting thing is, you read the stories on these Dodge Omnis from the engineers, which is awesome stuff to hear from guys who are actually there. But he actually had to fight to put they recommended like premium fuel in this, I think in the owner's manual, but he had to fight for that. They didn't want to put that in there. Oh, we don't want to add that. Really? You don't want to tell them to make the thing safer than it would otherwise be on regular gas? Not that guys are not going to run it on regular gas anyway, because oh, I want my turbo motor and I want all the power, but I also want to put cheap gas in it. Okay. Maybe you're the wrong kind of guy to be driving around in a fancy turbo motor. So let me know what you guys think on the knock sensor. I think it's a cool idea. And I really hope I really, really want it to work. Like most things when I go on the dyno, lots of people tell me, "Oh, you want it to fail." I'm like, no, actually, it's 100% the opposite of that. When somebody comes up with something that's promising the moon, and the spark plug thing is a perfect example of this. I want them to work. I want there to be a magic spark plug. I haven't found one yet. But I want that to be something. I want it to show power. I want push rod length to be, 50 horsepower. All of that. I want throttle body spacers to work. All of these things. I want all of it to show really big gains. I want to find a secret that I can share with people that's easy and inexpensive and something you can do yourself and worth lots of power. Unfortunately, the people that have come before me are pretty good at finding these things out, especially at the OEM level. And so a lot of times those things are not there. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't test them because people think that they're there. So at least we're giving those people information to show them that, hey, that's probably not really something that you should be spending time or effort or money on to try to find extra power there. I know it's easy to put on and it looks desirable and it's, they're promising the moon, but that's not really a thing. And so a lot of my stuff that I test is that, oh, here's this new intake manifold. This one's completely different. No, it's another short runner intake manifold, and it's going to do what other short runner intake manifolds do. It's not going to do that because I have an attitude about it, or it's not going to do that because you didn't do your homework. It's going to do that because of physics, because that's what happens. A reflected wave takes a certain amount of time to travel up and back with a given runner length. You can adjust that a little bit with the way things that you do, particularly to the entry and things that effectively determine the actual effective runner length of the manifold and when that reflected wave happens. But you're talking about splitting hairs there. Is it 4 inch? Is it 5 inch? Is it 5.25 inches? What is it? And they do what's, kind of predictable. We need a how-to video on knock sensor setup for the Holly. I have never tried running knock sensors on the Holly. And I agree, Admiral. I probably should do that just to see if it works. That's right. Who's there? knock. You need a new engine, or at least rods and pistons, and a new engine. This would be cool to use. Have you seen Holly's new LiDAR fuel level sensor? I haven't. Isn't that just a float, or is it infrared? An infrared grid like they use on what is the one with Mila Jovovich, where it slices her into cubes. It's very cool. 542 valve single overhead cam and 4 valve double overhead cam, which you consider to be more dependable. A 544 valve will make a lot more power, and I think the dependability they're both good. Detonation is a horrible sound. That's pretty distinctive. Should I test this? Yes, but can you test it with other systems to see how it compares? I don't know what else to compare it to. All I want is something that works. I don't care about if you get knock detection, that's a success. I don't know how another system is going to be better than that. Does it detect more knock or less knock Chris, you're on the Fowler website now. Do we trust Canadians? Yes, Canadians are our brethren. Ryan Reynolds is a national treasure. Absolutely test it, especially if you can dial it in, which I hope to do, which would be cool. Explain the system again. It's knock detection, adjustable knock detection with an LED readout, like a BZ meter, which I loved. So you had your 5-liter fail, truck stage 3 cam is toast, engines apart and cleaned, all new, back together and going back in. Oh, you had 5 lifters. I thought you had 5-liter, and I thought you have a stage 3 truck cam. Are you, Richard? Are you going to get a smaller truck cam now? Travis, the idea of modern hot rodding is to get more of everything. I agree. That's why fuel mileage is a big part of my repertoire. When I went for the Hall EFI class at the tuning school, they were pushing the Plex knock detection tool. Somebody had mentioned that too. So, Bill, you're saying everything else sucks except for the OEM ones? Oh, the negativity. Positive energy. Fuel Tech delivered this product in Brazil 6 years ago. It didn't sell too much here because we use 100% ethanol on the streets and meth on the track. So I believe we discontinued it. Somebody had mentioned where this was. It's fwlrtuning.com, which is Fowler. FWLR, all caps, tuning.com. That's where you find it. NGK is a superior spark plug compared to what? Would you recommend tapping this into the stock knock sensor in the 2.2, 2.5 that is sending information to the SMEC, or adding additional knock sensor somewhere else? Chris, I think that it would be interesting to try it to see if you could use that signal. I don't know the sensor he's using is a Bosch sensors. I don't know what the factory 2.2 is. I think I just put another one on there and see. My knock detecting ear muffs still work good. Just live when the engine rattles. I feel like that sensor could be something that could fail more easily than factory knock sensors. More stuff it's doing more easily can fail is the logic. Okay. Does a factory knock sensor ever fail? The sensor itself, we take sensors off of 200,000 or 300,000 miles. The sensors are still working. When the sensors get bad are usually when they fill up with like in the LSs, when they fill up with oil or water is even worse. Hillbilly, oh yeah, the air-cooled Volkswagens make lots of noise. Yep. Just like anything made more complex failures. I disagree with that. Fuel injection is way more complex than carburetors are, and modern fuel injection, the failure rate on modern fuel injection is very, very good. That's why they went to it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done that. Let's see. I remember my Honda had knock sensor short in harness, couldn't pass smog because of it. You had a short in the harness that you damaged it when you were doing something. Megasquirt has a standalone knock sensor module for over a decade now. It works good, but you have to tune it for about $50. Not bad. That's nice if you have that standalone ECU. Can you do the same wiring? You can do the same wiring. A 3.5 millimeter jack to a 2-wire knock sensor times 2 can record the full spectrum of knock and stereo with free audio software on a laptop or phone. Cool. Then you should do that. If William, if knock is necessary to operate an engine, what do you mean? If the knock sensor is necessary, or if there's not always detonation present on an engine, but there's always noises, there's always frequencies, and this is adjustable. Building 3 tunes, one for 93 and 15 pounds, one for E85 for 28 pounds, and the last one for Q16 for 35 pounds. Ryan Reynolds is Canadian. That's why I said he's a national treasure, and that's why we love people from Canada. Turbo Sentra, 230 at 50. No, we've run cams like that in Honda stuff. Why do aftermarket push rods when there's the same thickness as stock push rods? Both are 80 wall. Have you measured the strength of a stock push rod versus an aftermarket push rod? The material is not the same. More importantly, with knock and Holley, we need to learn how to dial in knock sensors on the true knock with Holley. I saw a short video on pre-oiling a turbo. Before starting the engine, they held the impeller with a screwdriver. Waited like 10 seconds. Is that worth it? What I like to do is we have the little Wizard of Oz Tin Man oil squirt bottle. I always put oil in. I put oil in before I start the motor, and then I spin the impeller with my finger and keep putting oil in it and spin it, and then we hook the line up. And I don't start the motor. We crank it over, and it has oil pressure in it. Because then when you crank it over, the impeller is spinning very slow, if at all, when you're cranking it, and it has oil pressure. Mark, you can use stock push rods. We use stock push rods and stuff. A hardened push rod isn't a mandatory upgrade for milder stuff. We run stock push rods on lots of junkyard stuff. Is broken when I received the 97 Accord EX. It didn't do anything but tried to repair. I was going to run new wires the weekend. I wonder what damaged the wire or the sensor. Usually guys do that when they're playing with the harness or they're taking the engine in and out and they damage the wiring. Noodles, what's up? Trying to use knock sensors on a handmade timing map is going to be tough because some areas knock before others, like down low and at the torque peak. I would argue that you shouldn't be relying on the knock sensor for the tune, but rather you should tune it, and the knock sensor should be trimming minor amounts. Where's the optimal location for the knock sensor? I don't think that there's an optimal one. There's not one that's better than others. You see, the LS has moved it to different spots. It was in the center of the block in the valley, and then now on the sides. I've seen them on the head. I've seen them on the block. It will hear it because that frequency will resonate through the metal parts of the motor, whether they're aluminum or steel or iron. I found a loose drill and an extra knock sensor. I found tools sometimes on stuff on motors that I bought. Can you use an aftermarket knock sensor on a non-computerized car with a big camshaft? Well, that's what we're going to try to find out. Like I said, I've had trouble with knock sensors detecting other frequencies and having it set them off. I don't know if it's our solid motor mounts or it's lash in the drive coupler or what it is, but it was hearing something that was not detonation. And so that's what I'm wondering. If you can get it tuned properly and it only hears the knock, it will do that on a carbureted motor or a fuel injected motor. It doesn't matter. You put a 220 something, 230 something cam in a 4.8 and a stick shift in a Wrangler, knock sensors would freak out over 3,000 RPM. Wonder why. Wonder what they were hearing. Found a couple of 10mm wrenches in cars at the junkyard. So guys are walking around looking for those. Have you ever seen the Plex tuning knock sensor tuner? What I understand, it listens to the engine with a mild tune and maps all the noise. As you increase the timing, it recognizes the induced noise as knock. That would be cool. Waiting on cables so I can tune the Beretta ECU. What noodles? What ECU are you using in that? JNS Safeguard is expensive. How much is this one? I don't know yet. I don't know anything about it. The worst part they had with the knock sensor was on a solid flat tab cam. Yeah, having lash is noisy, and I just don't know if that's the same frequency that the sensor is interpreting as knock. Can you adjust the sensor on how much it can knock before it alarms? I think you can. I think you can. I think you can. I think you can. Wow, that got ugly in a hurry. I'm sensing a rebound though. Problem is the sensor. They're made of piezoelectric crystals and produce voltage. That was my question. Produce voltage when certain pressure is applied to them. So when they're manufactured, they only respond to certain frequencies. Yeah, the sensors have a frequency range, and that was my question to him when he sent the stuff over. Of an old 350 with a nasty rattle from time to time. Found part of a socket set under under the intake manifold. It was in the lifter valley, bouncing around in there. What I'd like to see is, and maybe this information is available somewhere online because I've never looked this up. I'd like to see what the different sensors, what their frequency ranges are for the different sensors, so that maybe you could figure out what your what frequency the detonation is in your particular combination, and see how much it overlaps with other stuff. Because that's the thing. If you have a frequency range that's detonation, and then you add roller rockers and lash from the drivetrain, and then I don't know, or lash from a camshaft or headers or whatever. Um, how much does it overlap the listening frequency for the sensor? I hope it works as well as advertised. And he's not advertising. He's not saying it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's not doing any of that. He's just said, "Hey, here's this thing, and I have it. Would you like to try it and see if it works?" So, which was awesome. It's way better than, "Hey, this is the greatest thing in the world, and you need to try this because in order to be cool, you'd have to have this and say how great it is, just like I am." It's not that at all. It's, "Hey, here's a thing. Would you be interested in trying it? I'll send you one so that you can test it." Just got a big box in from Jegs. Nice. Okay, noodle stock 94.95, flashable. Plex Tuning said you could run solid rollers with gear drive, and their system works because it maps all the noise. Any other noise aside from what is normal gets picked up, and the system pulls timing. Nice. Blue collar. That's what we used to do back in the day too. We used to desensitize the knock sensor by putting thread tape on it. Look into the Megasquirt knock sense project information. We did a lot of testing, and there's document frequency ranges for many of the sensors that we tried. Oh, cool. Piston bouncing through the header. Before it bounces through the header, though, it has to bounce up and down in the cylinder against the valves and stuff, and then out the valves, and then into the intake manifold, and it bounces around the intake manifold, then goes into other cylinders. It's not good. Found a 6-inch long buckhorn handled hunting knife down from the radiator. Screwdrivers I find down there all the time. Down in the fender wells too, or in on the inside of the fender liner, there's usually stuff. And then down on the back side of that also too. Primarily, there are two types of knock sensors. They are resonance type and non-resonance type. Most modern engines use non-resonance type. A specific brand M that's noteworthy is the Bosch type. I don't feel so bad now. Hey, we had to try what we tried. The coolest one I saw was the guy that had the little neon that actually used the knock sensor to send the signal to the computer. That's how he pulled timing on it when he put the turbo on it, which I thought was a great idea. JWT said 240 at 50 is a race cam for a QR25DE. 240 would be a lot. It's more camshaft than you need to make the power that you're talking about. This knock sensor system is from, is it from Fowler? Yeah. From Nick Fowler. Capital FWLRtuning.com, .org, .gov. Found a partial pair of bottles of whiskey in the trunk. Dropped off my 72 SS 454. Those go together, right? That's on brand. That's the thing when you buy a used car, you look under the seats, the front seats and the back seats, and in the trunk, and in the trunk wheels, and inside the engine compartment, and all that stuff. Then under the carpet, you find all sorts of weird stuff when you pull carpets on stuff. WSK, what's up? Thank you very much. Plus, you have a cool job playing with engines. Yeah. I just got off the phone with Ish at West Tech, and we were talking about the trigger wheel on the distributor for the 2.2 liter Dodge. So I'm going to try to cut it down, and we're going to see what happens. Lost my favorite quarter driver nut driver down behind a fender well the other day. That's why I like the flexible magnets. Those seem to work pretty well. You could reach down there, and sometimes you find when you do that and you're reaching down to find the thing that you lost, you bring up all a whole treasure trove of stuff. Christopher, I'm running a 388 stroker, 500 horsepower. How much nitrous can I spray? Well, we sprayed 300 shots on 440 or 50 horsepower 5.3 junkyard motors. So you could do that. You found a spoon in your Tahoe. That's right. People are riding dirty, huh? 94% are saying yes, and 6% are saying no. I thought it was cool, and it's now Oliver's car, but the 72 Nova, when you look under when I was taking the interior part, when I did the video that's up, I found the original build sheet on it, which is always a big score on this. You think I can make power past 6,500 with a 230 cam? Yeah, on the Nissan, yes, quite easily. To give you an idea, with the Type R cam is much less than that. And on a 1.8 Type R, it's going to make peak power at 75 or 7,700 RPM. Yeah, blue collar. That's right. When you have to, and I did when I was doing this, when you're pulling the carpet, especially this one, which seemed like it had been underwater, it was Das boat. It definitely had been a creek or a river or something. But when you're pulling that stuff up, I definitely wear gloves on that stuff anymore so that you don't find needles and who knows what else. Rats chew through my O2 wiring harness. They do like that stuff. Nice. My friend Matt bought a 41 Chevy Coupe, found a compartment in the trunk, opened it up, found 3 bottles of alcohol in mason jars. Was it clear? Found 4 Playboy magazines and the 71 Torino. Nice. I think the next car I buy might ask the police to search it to make sure that it doesn't have contraband in it. That's right. Knock detection with a water mesh spray kit. See, that would be good. If we can get a knock sensor to work and actually detect knock, it opens up the possibility for all kinds of tests, which is, kind of awesome. Plan is just basic tuning, clean up the 4T60E, TCC, lock, unlock, and possibly enable lean cruise mode. I would like somebody to do that on my truck so that when I'm cruising down the road at 70 miles an hour, which I on the 400 miles of cruise that I do in each direction, I would like to see if we can get lean burn going. Nick Fowler makes this knock sensor. It's fwlrtuning.com, and the FWLR is capitalized. So if you want to go search, you could go get some information on it. My junkyard sells thrift, so any random stuff you find in the cars. If I can grab to 7,500, I don't shift out a third till after the 8th or 90 miles an hour. Yeah, it with a 6-inch runner intake manifold and 230 degrees at 50 and a ported head, it should easily make power up there. Heard that some of the wire coating are made from food-based materials. I don't think rats really care since they'll chew through metal. The cruise control likes 4,000 RPM. It has an attitude. It's like, no, you need to be going faster than that. False knock can be an issue. Yeah, here's stuff that's not there. And that's the other thing. It's gear lash, gear noise. The gear drive on superchargers is like that too. That can create a problem. There is a system setting for lean cruise on some GM ECUs or you can leave it in open loop and lean out the cruise area of the VE table. Mine's an 02, so I'll ask Eric and Ish about it and see. I've tried lean burn running 15.4 to 15.8. It's very minimal gains from Stoic, not worth it. So you've monitored the change in fuel mileage from that? Because if you change it one full air fuel point, that should make a difference in fuel mileage. Just got a 68 runner with a factory 440. Nice. Chrysler New Yorker motor in it. What's the best cam to get the power and lope for street application as a 3500 stall? I don't know. I'm not real savvy on 440. I'm assuming the one thing I know about 440s, they don't have very much head flow, but there are lots of cams for them, and I would imagine that they respond to the same. They respond to the same cam timing that everything else does, that every other V8 does. I don't know about your piston to valve clearance. If it has piston to valve clearance like other stuff, which it may not, because it may, depending on what year that 440 is, it may have the piston way down the hole, so you can get rid of. You can go with any kind of camshaft that you want because it has an infinite amount of piston to valve clearance. If that's the case, then you put the camshaft in it that does the thing that you want it to do on the street. But if the rest of it's all stock and it's carbureted and has a dual plane intake manifold on a 440, something that's a 224, 230 or a 232, 240 kind of cam, depending on how sporty you are, a 3500 stall would take the bigger camshaft. Lean burn program doesn't work on USA vehicles. I don't know why that I don't know why that would be different. I'm making controlled vacuum leak to trim air fuel on my carbureted 2.3 Mustang using Arduino and a valve like the TH289. This would be great to integrate into the system. These cams are going to be the best investment so far. Can't wait to build a new engine. Phone a friend would be comical. Like I said, I know what camshaft you should use, and they're going to tell you the same thing. What do you want the motor to do? Or even if Dulcich told you his favorite cam, that might not be your favorite cam, or Freiberger. Again, it depends on what you're trying to do. Or do you want it to run from 4,000 to 6,000? Do you want to make good power everywhere? Again, what's your piston to valve clearance? All of that stuff would come into play. But like the numbers that I just gave you are going to be what they recommend, unless you're building a race version, then the camshaft would be bigger than that. A Navigator is a 544 valve. I don't know about that particular Expedition. But it's pretty easy to see the difference between the two. It's pretty easy to determine that. Just look at the valve cover, look at the intake. The motor looks completely different on a 2 valve than it does on a 4 valve. So 16, your knock sensor is detecting valve lash, so that tells you when it's time to adjust the valves. Clown, so it's a 2 valve until 2005. A lot of modern cars are running PLA plastics and soybean plastics that mice tend to like to eat. Oh, cool. Versus the old stuff where it was just an obstacle to get to the copper. Maybe they were wanting compression copper because they were working out. I saw a video the other day on an NA Chrysler 400 motorhome was running 1,000 horsepower at 9,500 RPM with Mopar B1 heads. That's a lot of RPM. There's some videos on YouTube in regards to enabling lean cruise. I'd like to do a test. I mean, I'd like to do, because since I run the thing so many times, it'd be cool to turn it on and turn it off and see if there's a difference. James, there aren't any bad questions. So, what are the most durable rings? Having ring gap really is the key. And we've run lots and lots of nitrous with stock rings. If you want to buy specific rings, I'd talk to the guys at Total Seal, and they can hook you up with a stronger ring. Having a field day trying to get my fuel gauge to work. Yeah. And turbo sensor, make sure that you have valve springs to go with your camshaft that you're putting in there for the RPM range that you want to run. What would I try to do to improve mileage on my truck? The first thing I should do is run in alignment. I should have the car aligned because it needs it. Fuel pressure in the tire. Got a text from my mom. Her car won't start, so I gotta go help her. So you can improve the aero, you can change the gearing, you can change the air fuel, obviously. I don't know what the timing is under cruise. I'd like to watch that while it's under cruise and see what's going on. So go ahead and get rid of our poll. 95% saying, yes, Richard, by all means, you should test that. Of course I should. Of course you should test that. Checking on some stuff. Check. She's good. She's not going anywhere. She just said she tried to start her car. It probably needs to be jumped. Probably maybe a car door's open or something. The fuel economy is the driver, or your driving. Michael has mentioned that the driver is the single biggest thing. The way that you drive is going to really determine your fuel mileage. But on a steady state cruise for several hundred miles, going and actually setting the cruise control isn't the best way to get fuel mileage. If you drive for fuel mileage, you can do better than cruise control can, running at a steady speed, because that's not the best. Driving so that you're trying to maximize fuel economy is different than that. But it's a good test regimen, and as long as you're going, when you're on the freeway, as long as you're going the same direction, because there's slope in different directions and different hills and stuff. There's a ton of timing tutorials that are really bad. I think you should get somebody like Dulcich to explain how to set up timing. Dulcich would be the wrong guy to set up timing on an EFI motor if that's what you're talking about. What do you think about the new Edelbrock carburetor? I think it's too much stuff that people are going to get lost. That's a possibility, but I think it's probably the best one out right now. AFR Enforcer heads versus LS3 heads. Are you talking about an AFR Enforcer cathedral port head or an AFR Enforcer rec port head? Do they have both of those? I think what the question you should be asking yourself is, are you using all of what either one of those heads will give you right now? And the answer is probably not. Back when I was accelerating faster and driving 80, 85 coming from lower elevations. So higher elevations got 13.1, thought I would see a bigger difference. I don't know what your previous comment was, so I don't know what it's different than. If you're going 85, you're not trying to get fuel mileage. I need to replace a battery wire on my wife's alternator. Won't different motors create different harmonics? There will be different noises, and like I said, there will be overlapping noises with the frequency that the knock sensor is listening to, quite possibly. The nitrous can pool. Make sure you use proper foggers. I don't understand that. I don't think AFR offers rec port heads on their budget line. Yeah, Noodles. Usually the cruise, if you're leaning it out, you're adding timing, and under cruise, you'd have lots of timing anyways. It's not unusual to have 45 or 50 degrees of timing. Let's see. I'm doing a calculator right now. So -9. Okay, so so the comment, I read one of the comments I wanted to address. Let's see here. Utah, overlap can make a small duration cam rev way higher. So here's the thing about that statement. It's not, I don't think it's accurate. If you have a mild cam, like a 210, 220, because I just went into the Summit cam calculator to make sure that this was accurate. So if you have like a 210, 220 cam and it's on a 112 and you put it on a 108 or a 106, you've increased the overlap. Both of those have negative overlap, by the way, but if you increase the overlap, but if you add overlap on the camshaft by tightening the LSA, which you'd have to do, or you have to change the duration, you're going to increase low speed and mid-range power, not high RPM power. It's the other way around. You would increase the LSA to get the thing to rev higher. Or just the best way to get it to rev higher is to add duration. Dennis, you have to buy heads, so you're looking for the best way to spend money. The cheap way, you can support a lot of power with a factory LS3 head. That head will support way over 600 horsepower. It's going to be the cheapest way to go. It would be better than any of the factory heads, and you have to spend quite a bit of money to make more power than that head. You'd be better off spending your money somewhere else. I get 24 miles to gallon at 85 on flat ground with a 5-mile-an-hour crosswind. On what kind of vehicle is this? Please don't tell me that it's a truck, because I know that that's not accurate. What would you do for an engine that hasn't moved in decades? I would spray a whole bunch of stuff down in the cylinders, and I would try rotating it by hand first. Remember the head groove hype back in the 2000s where you're supposed to cut the grooves in the chambers and reduce knock and improve fill? Cut the grooves. I don't know about grooves, but I know about, that's not softening the chamber that you're talking about, right? I don't remember the grooves. Isn't there a lean burn O2 sensor that you can put in? It runs leaner at cruise. The computer is going to want a specific readout from the knock sensor, and I don't know if you can skew the voltage on the knock sensor to make it do that. You probably could, but I don't know if the different sensors skew the voltage output. Mark, you want a good ECU for carb guys? To replace the carburetor or to run the timing for a carburetor? Yeah, Michael, that number wouldn't. I mean, I had that much in the 5-liter Mustang too. Yeah, and Clown, what you should do if you're going to start it up with a separate gas can. I don't know if that motor's fuel injected or what it is, but it'd be good to have good fuel in it and not going through the lines and the filter and stuff that are old, or at least flush them to make sure that they're good. Oh, grooves like a die grinder. Yeah, I'd have to look that up. I don't remember that. Do you think a Spintron is the best break-in procedure? I don't. Couldn't I try to disable the fuel pump or remove coils and hook up a battery, use the starter, smooth the engine? I wouldn't do that. I would spin it by hand. I would definitely take the plugs out. If you spin it, because the starter has enough power if you crank the thing over to damage something if it's locked up. I wouldn't do that. I would put stuff in there and make sure that it spins over by hand. You want to do it easy first and make sure it spins all the way around before you try to spin it with a starter. Turbo sensor's out. One more minute. $22 miles per gallon is good. I don't know what kind of car that is, though. Is that a Mustang? Even the Mustang, that's pretty good. The computer also says 32 to 34 miles per gallon, 65. It's definitely not doing that. I get 18 on my Tahoe. That's what mine is 18, 19. Tested dozens and dozens of times on the same road. It does the same thing every time. So I know that it's accurate. But and on the trip out to Ohio, same kind of thing. It's high teens, 19 or so, 18 and a half, 19. Rod, that you need to pick a fuel pump that will support your power level and actually support over your power level is the real critical thing. How bad is a fuel tank drop on a Tahoe? I haven't done one on a Tahoe. Does it come out the bottom and you don't have to lift the bed like the trucks? And on that note, it is time to go. I will be back tonight. Thank you guys all for showing up. I'm going to go over and jumpstart a car. You know, car guy stuff.